So, do you want to know what my reality is? I just filmed a whole video and then looked at the footage after, and I had to like cut off from here, like up. Like I was just like a neck and a mouth talking, and oh my god, I have to refilm the entire thing. But in the meantime, I wanted to film a question and answer video because I asked my friends and family from the US, like, what questions do they have about immigration in Finland and the differences between Finland and the United States. And I think that I got some really interesting questions, and I'd really like to answer them and give a little bit more insight into my life and what things are like and what immigration really is and why it's not so scary. So here we go. The first question is, what are some of the cultural differences, like how we treat each other? If there's a respect for your elders kind of thing, like how Korea is, or is it just like America where everyone basically shits on each other? I think if you're asking like if Finland is more like America or more like Korea, it's definitely a lot more like America. Like there's not an inherent respect for your elders. Like people don't really take care of their elders like they do in the US. It's kind of just you put them in a nursing home and that's that. Of course, some people are exceptions to that and don't treat their family like that, but I think it's actually really similar to the United States. The next question is, what do people dress like? Have you seen an H&M catalog? Because it's pretty much just everyone just wears H&M. Like I swear to God, all the teenage girls wear the exact same thing. They wear skinny jeans, knee-high boots, and currently it's black leather jackets, like black pleather jackets, and I know exactly which one it is from H&M. Like they all dress exactly the same. It's very similar to the US, with the exception of Ugg boots, I'd say. What is the slang like is the next question. Finnish slang is interesting. First of all, there's like basically an entirely almost different language than actual Finnish language called colloquial Finnish or spoken Finnish. Spoken Finnish shortens a lot of Finnish words, and I mean we shorten words in English as well, but they shorten words like mina is I, and they shorten it to like ma. Sina, you, sa. Like they shorten like the entire basics and foundation of the language, and that's kind of like their slang. But there's also a lot of different slang, like the Helsinki dialect of Finnish is really well known for being very slangy. But the coolest part of Finnish slang is that if you listen to a lot of kids speak, like kids, you know, any age kid really, they will incorporate English into their speaking. Like you'll hear them say like, let's go, and then the rest of the sentence will be in Finnish, and you'll hear them say like, anyway, and they spell it differently too, like A-N-I-W-A-I, like things like that. Like they spell it like really phonetically, but they use English as a slang, and I think that's really cool. The next question is, what is the typical living style in Finland? Is it green? I would say that there's a lot more of an initiative to live green in Finland. Like right now, if I look outside my window, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different like trash bins in our like little trash area, and they are for separated trash. There's biological waste, which is like the plastic waste, which is plastic wrapping and stuff. There's cardboard, there's paper, there's metal, there's glass. I don't think we have a metal one, but I think we have all the rest. And there's like more of an initiative to separate out your trash and recycle it as opposed to just throwing everything away together. I mean, not everyone recycles and separates their trash, but there's definitely enough of an effort for people to do it. Aside from that, we also, pretty much everybody recycles bottles because you can actually get quite a bit of money back from them. And because Finland is like a very nature-oriented society with pagan roots, you know, forest is kind of really sacred in Finnish culture. The lakes are a huge staple of Finnish culture. Because of that, I think that there is more of a tendency towards being green and living a more green and outdoorsy lifestyle. Of course, not everybody does that, but a lot of people do, and also not nearly as many people drive, which is really good. But other than that, like, I'd say that we're decently green, but we're nowhere near what we should be if we want to make any sort of difference. But still, progress is better than nothing. Of course, the next question is a food question. There's always food questions. What is Finnish food like, and is eating culture different in Finland? Finnish food is very, like, Finnish food culture is basically exactly how you imagine it would be when you live in a country that is frozen for more than half of the year. Like, back before we had import, export, and industrialized, food production and agriculture and whatnot, there was like a lot of heavy meat stews, and like root vegetables, rye. It was like a kind of very bland but hearty cuisine, and that kind of cuisine is still alive and well. There's like quite a bit of fish, mostly salmon. There's reindeer. I mean, reindeer's not really, I wouldn't say it's popular, but it's readily available. I wouldn't say people eat it every day, but other than that, a lot of pastries with cardamom in it. Like, that's like in everything here, and I don't understand. Like, to me, cardamom is a Christmas spice, but here it's in freaking everything. A lot of rye, rice, potatoes, very like kind of Eastern European. It's Eastern European cuisine mixed with Northern European, only without like the sort of like spice and creativity of like pierogies and stuff like that. Like, a lot of stews, very carb heavy. It's perfect for winter, but in summer, Finnish cuisine is kind of like, no. And we don't really have a ton of like domestic vegetables and produce, so. Finnish eating customs, they're slightly different. I don't think any American coming here would be very shocked by the eating customs. In Europe, you hold forks differently, and you're supposed to have a fork and a knife in your hands, and then only put your knife down when you want to take a sip of a drink. My old German professor taught me that. But I don't think I even try to hold the fork the right way here anymore. I don't really care. Other than that, the eating times are about the same. People normally have like toast with butter and a piece of cheese or a piece of ham for breakfast. People also pretty much always have coffee after dinner, which is interesting. Coffee and dessert. But other than that, it's not really very different. Nothing I can think of is very different. The next question is, what do Finns think of Americans? Lately, pretty much every question that I get about America, or like every comment that I get about America, is like related to Trump. Like, they can't understand how someone like that got elected, and I'm not going to get into that or share my own political views or anything like that, but that is like kind of the focus. Like, there's a lot of negative thoughts about the US right now because Trump was elected, and I think that it says a lot about the US and the kind of things that we value as a culture, and mostly that's kind of at the forefront of everybody's minds and opinions of Americans right now. Other than that, Finns think that Americans are like just all about the food. Like, there are so many American import products here, and then there are like these American fantasy products. There's all sorts of stuff here, and I can't really think of any examples other than like burger sauce, of things that are passed off as being American, but that I've never even seen or heard of in America. Like, it's just a complete fantasy product, and they just do it to try to sell the idea of something being American. It's silly. The next question is, I heard that some fruits and vegetables are super expensive and also super cheap compared to here. I'd like to know more about grocery shopping there. Fruits and vegetables are not cheap here. I used to think that they were. Like, honestly, it's hard to say because I haven't been to the United States in over a year, and even when I am there, I don't typically go grocery shopping. Like, my parents or whoever I'm visiting usually has food because I'm only there for like a week or two. I would say that food is definitely I would definitely say that food is more expensive here. It's not cheap. I mean, you can get food pretty cheap, and you can always find sales and stuff, but in general, I would say that the grocery bill is higher. Fruit is fucking outrageously expensive here. Like, oh my god, strawberries are like €6 for a liter of them, which is like not a lot. And they're just crazy expensive. Blueberries, crazy expensive. Watermelon, like you can't really get a watermelon for under €6 unless it's on sale. It's just crazy. How did you take the leap to move to Finland and start this big new chapter of my life? That's a tough one. When I was 18, I moved to California to be with someone. And that didn't work out. And it fucking broke my heart. But I was able to live. Like, I survived it. I moved back home. I was okay. I started like new things and I moved on. And kind of that sort of strength that I got from that the worst thing that could happen at the time had happened and I was okay. Like, that sort of revelation is really empowering. And if you can kind of survive your worst case scenario and move forward and have things be perfectly okay and you actually come out happier in the end than you were when you thought you were at your best, it's so empowering and it makes you feel like you can do everything, because if you fall, you know that you'll get back up. It came into my head of moving to Europe. It was like kind of like a no-brainer. It was like, you know, what's the worst case that can happen? If that were to happen, would I be okay? Yes, okay, let's do it. And the fact that it made me scared and made me nervous and made me think of all the things that could go wrong was just kind of proof that I needed to know that it was the right thing for me to do. So I did it. And hey, it turned out great. And I still think of that worst case scenario, and if it happens, I have a plan and I'll be okay. Like, I'll live. It's not the end of the world. I'll just have to start over again. That I've already done that. So that's okay. The next question is, how did you adapt to a new language being immersed in it, and are there a lot of people where I live that speak English? I'll address the second part of that because it's definitely the more simple answer. Yes, a lot of Finnish people speak English. The only people that you'll really find that don't are kind of like the kind of people that kind of slack off in school, don't really care, and then like older people, like I'd say like 60 plus, don't speak great English a lot of times, and then, you know, young children. But even like young kids nowadays, they're like speaking Finglish, like half English, half Finnish. It's weird because they like watch so much YouTube, they play video games, they watch movies and listen to music, everything from the US, so they speak great English. And there are people, a lot of Finns and Europeans and stuff will tell you that they don't speak English, and then they'll start speaking it and you'll be like, you're more fucking fluent than I am, what the hell? And yeah, so if like a European tells you that they don't speak English, they probably do. So a lot of people are really great in English, and I've met some people who I would never even guess weren't from the US or England or something based on how good their English is. The second part of that question, how hard was it to adapt? Given that Finnish is one of the most difficult languages for English speakers to learn that uses the Latin alphabet, like of course like Japanese and Mandarin and Korean are really hard as well, and Arabic, but they use a different alphabet, so of course it's harder. But Finnish, just purely based on the rules and structure of the language, is really hard for English speakers to learn. I'm quite good at languages, and I find it really fucking hard to learn and like use Finnish. I can understand it somewhat, but using it is a whole different ballpark. And being immersed, they say that the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it, and like, oh well, if you want to learn a language really quick, just go to that country and, you know, within a few months you'll be speaking it. It's like, I mean, ideally I guess, but not really in practice. Like, all being immersed in it in Finland did was make me really resent having to learn Finnish. Like, I went from loving languages and like being really excited to learn a new language to like the last thing I ever wanted to do was study Finnish, because I just the fact that I needed it and that it was around me all the time and I heard it constantly, it just like was a constant reminder that I don't speak it, and I eventually like would reject the language. The next question is, what's your favorite and least favorite part of living in Europe or Finland specifically? My favorite part of living in Finland is that I feel really safe. Like, if I know that if something were to happen, I would be taken care of and I wouldn't have to go bankrupt because of it. My least favorite thing about living in Finland is the fact that I'm so far away from my parents. But I mean, I guess aside from that, my least favorite thing is the language. My favorite thing about living in Europe is that traveling is really easy and really cheap. Like, if I want to go to, like, I have a friend who goes to England all the time, like to and from Finland and England, and she can go like return trip ticket for like $50, and that's like crazy to me, because traveling in Europe was like a dream that like a lot of people that don't even ever get to do, and I can just go do it for like nothing. It's really amazing. I mean, I haven't really toured that much in Europe, but I can if I want to, and that's really nice. My least favorite part about living in Europe is that I don't get 2-day shipping on Amazon products. Knowing what you know now and being already in the depth of European culture, would you live and move anywhere else in Europe? And if so, where? If I were to move to anywhere else in Europe, which I would, I mean, I think Finland would always be home base, and this is kind of where I see myself for the long haul, but I would, you know, move temporarily to other places in Europe, sure. And if I were to pick those places, it would probably be between Italy, Germany, Sweden, and Norway. I think those are kind of my most interesting places. And the final question that I have for right now for this episode of questions and answers about Finland, which is the first episode and maybe only. And the last question I have for this video is, what do you think about Finnish music? And I actually have a little bit of a story for that. So my family is part Finnish, and I remember like in school growing up, we would always every year, like in elementary and middle school, have this day of like International Day, and everyone would pick a country, and then they would like bring food and stuff in from that country. And most people picked, I think like it was actually that you picked like a country that you have family heritage from. And if there was like duplicates, then the people with the duplicate like would pick a different country, or they would pick the same but bring different foods in. Anyway, my country was always Finland because I was the only Finnish kid there, like the only kid with any Finnish heritage there, of course. And I hated it because our food is so bland, like compared to like Italy, and I'm like always cried like having to go to these days, and I'd be like, why can't we be from somewhere cool like Italy or Germany? And I remember like being so miserable and like bringing in this little Finnish flag on like this little stand and being like, I hate Finland, Finland is so stupid, why do we have to be from there? Anywhere else, I'd rather be from anywhere else. It was ridiculous. And so when I was little, like I just like didn't want anything to do with Finland. You know, I would pretend that I was from other places and like just ignore it or hide it or not even care about it or pay attention. But then I started watching like Jackass and Bam Margera's show. I don't remember what it was called, if it was just called Bam Margera, I don't know. But like that whole group of people, you know. And they hung out with Finnish people. They hung out with the Dudesons and they hung out with the band Him. And I was like maybe like 12, 13-ish at the time. I was really young, somewhere around there. Definitely double digits, but no higher than 13, I would say. And I first discovered Him, and I started listening to them, and oh my god, that Butterfly song, I must have played that 100 million times. I was obsessed. I was convinced I was gonna marry Ville Valo. I was completely in love with them, like, oh my god, they were just, I was like, they're singing for me, just me. And that was my first introduction to Finnish music, and that was the first time that I actually like started to identify with Finland and my heritage and take an interest in it. And I think that was a relief to parts of my family, but I think it was also a big negative because I was listening to the same song over and over and over and over and over again, and that meant that they were too But of course my experience with Finnish music has expanded a lot from him, and I don't listen to him at all anymore, and I like really cringe hard when I think about it. Finnish music, it's extremely varied. Like, it's just like, you know, the US. Like, if there's a genre or a style out there, then there's someone in Finland doing it. When I think of Finnish music, I think of like the metal bands, and I used to go see them a lot and listen to them a lot, and it's like really like winter solstice-y. Like, I swear all the songs are about winter or like Norse mythology. It's very like dark and moody and melodic, and if that's kind of what you vibe with, then that's great. I don't find Finnish music boring at all. I do find, like, other than metal, Finnish music to be really freaking cheesy. Like, the raps that I hear and the hip-hop that I hear on the radio are like so... It sounds like if you described rap to a 12-year-old, and like what they would make from what you described is what Finnish rap is to me. Like, it sounds like really basic and not really creative. It's kind of generic, like almost like kind of like the stuff that we had from the early 2000s, but like not as catchy or as sexual. Why was it so sexual back then? So that's about all I have for this Q&A. Hopefully I get more questions soon, because this video was a lot of fun. And I hope that you guys enjoy it. If you did, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. The engagement that I get on these videos makes me feel like there's a reason to keep doing them. Otherwise I'm just sitting here talking to myself, which I would do anyway, but it's nice to know that people are out there watching and want to see it, so I'd appreciate it.